The Quinnipiac women's soccer team will play in the conference semifinals this week. And volleyball is on the brink of making playoffs for the fourth year in a row. Plus, women's basketball opened their season today. Stick around for Bobcat Breakdown. Welcome to Studio 125. I'm Katie O'Keefe, and I'll be your host tonight. And your analysts tonight are MAAC Schreiber and Ryan Flaherty. No better time than fall playoffs starting and winter sports in high gear. But guys, who will have the better takes tonight?
Well, I mean, Max has already said he's going to lose tonight, so I'm feeling pretty good, Katie.
You know what? The Islanders have won 10 straight, so they're hot, I'm hot.
I like it. Let's get it started. Tonight we'll start off with the Quinnipiac women's soccer team. Number 5, Quinnipiac will play number 2, Fairfield, in the MAAC semifinals on Thursday in Stag territory. Despite what happens on Thursday, Max, let me ask you first, has the team exceeded expectations already?
Well, Ryan, I think that they have. I mean, this team last season was projected to win second in the MAAC. It was projected to be second in the MAAC. This year, same deal, and they made it to the playoffs as a fifth seed. But this year, unlike last year, they were able to win a playoff game, and they did it with a really young basis. They did it with the names of Selena Salas, Markayla Bailari, Emily Loney, and they did it with a freshman goaltender in Megan Phillips, who was third in the MAAC in save percentage. So the fact that they were able to do it with such a young basis, unlike last year, and they still have 3 more years left of this like star-studded talent that has a lot of potential, I think it is a successful season.
You know, it's a great point, but I think because of that, I think that it's not a successful season. Listen, this is a team that's been to the MAAC semifinals 3 of the last 4 years. If the Patriots make it to the AFC Championship game, no one's going to call that a successful season because they've been there the last 8 times. This team has been 3 of the last 4 years, so they have enough talent to get there. They have the co-MAAC Rookie of the Year on their team. They have 2 other players that are on the All-MAAC Rookie team. They have players that are a shoo-in for All-MAAC first, second teams. I really think that the talent they have, they're better than a team that can win just one playoff game, and for that, I think they haven't exceeded any expectations yet.
But they did it with such a young basis where I think that there's so much promise moving forward in the future, where it's not like the last years that, like you mentioned, the past 3 out of the 4 last years, but this is a really young team that has shown so much promise in the fact that they were able to go out, win a playoff game. Hey, maybe they'll do it again against Fairfield too. If that's the case, I think you have to label it a successful season.
I mean, and listen, I don't want to take anything away from what they've done. I just think with so much depth, with a defense that's allowing a second best .94 goals per game in the MAAC behind Monmouth, who's the powerhouse of the conference, I just think there's so much talent there that you can't just say, oh, they won a playoff game, that's a successful season, when they've been winning playoff games in years past, and they've shown that they're a team that can be better than just winning one playoff game.
Well, the Bobcat Breakdown producers picked this semifinal game versus Fairfield as the game of the week, which I'm sure we can all agree on. Ryan, what are your predictions for this game on Thursday?
Katie, this is going to be a phenomenal game. I have Quinnipiac winning this one 3-1, and let me tell you why. Quinnipiac already beat Fairfield at Fairfield 3-0 this year, so they're comfortable playing on the road. They're comfortable playing at that interstate rival in Connecticut. They're 4-1-2 against Fairfield all time. They're 2-0-2 on the road. They've never lost to Fairfield at Fairfield. I just have a lot of confidence in this team, and there was a social media clip going around this week of Drew Brees when he went to Purdue, his alum, and he talked about a defining moment. One moment can define a season. I think scoring 3 goals to come back and win a playoff game could be a defining moment that gets them across the hump into Fairfield and into the MAAC championship game. I got them winning 3-1.
I mean, Ryan, I like your optimism. Obviously, I'm a student at Quinnipiac, so it would be really nice to see them have a successful season, but I got to speak the truth when I'm on the desk, and Fairfield is just a much better team so far this season. They've proven that, a 7-2-1 record, and like I said, this is a really young team, a freshman goalkeeper in Megan Phillips. It's going to be really difficult for them to go out there and make it this far, and that doesn't mean that the future isn't bright, but I just don't know if they're able to do it this season. The moment might be just a little bit too big for them. And Fairfield is a really good team. I mean, they have 3 different players in the top 5 in points in the MAAC. They have Brooke Hernon is a really nice player. She's top 5 in the MAAC. Shots, points, goals per game, assists. And they're also a great defensive team. They're second in the MAAC in shutouts. So I think it's going to be a really tough task for Quinnipiac. I think it would be a great story if they could pull it off. I personally just don't see it this year.
Max, you make a good argument, and it'll be a good contest. So that's women's soccer, Thursday, November 7th at Fairfield University for the MAAC semifinals. Game starts at 7. Now for the Quinnipiac men's soccer team, which I'm sure we will also see in the playoffs. But first, the team has to finish out one last conference game. That game is tomorrow against 6th-seeded Ryder. Meanwhile, Quinnipiac is 3rd in the standings, sitting comfortable there. But it's actually a big game for Eamon Whalen. The senior forward is 3 points away from making Quinnipiac's history book as the 3rd highest player in points. Max, will Whalen make the list?
You know, obviously, I don't have a crystal ball that can predict the future, but I have to take an educated guess here. And it's fun to believe, and it's fun to believe in one of the best players that Quinnipiac men's soccer has ever seen in the history of the program. And last year, he was unanimous MAAC Offensive Player of the Year, first team All-MAAC. And this year, he's had a phenomenal season, 3 goals against Siena. Last year, he had 13 goals in 18 games. This year, he has 9 goals in 13 games. So he was out in the beginning of the season with an injury, but in the time that he has played, he's really exceeded the phenomenal season that he's had last year. So why not? All he needs is a goal and an assist against Ryder. Ryder is kind of in the middle of the pack, especially defensively, 6th or 5th in goals against average, saves, and shutouts. So it will be a little bit difficult because Ryder kind of has a mediocre defense, but why not? Why isn't he going to get it? He's one of the most storied players in this program's history, so I say that he will get it.
Yeah, I mean, I concur. Why wouldn't he get it when he scored 4 goals just this week? No, never mind 9 goals in the season. He scored 4 this week. Got a hat trick against Siena, then added another one against Fairfield. I mean, he's hot right now, and they say big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games. We're heading into the playoffs. I would have to think he's going to keep up his hot streak. He's got to put at least a couple in the back of the net. He only needs 1 goal and 1 assist, as you said, or 2 goals will do the trick. So I just think, how could he not? One of the best players that we've ever seen at Quinnipiac. You'd have to think he's got to jump into that 3rd spot. And
he wants to win. He's a competitor, and I think the fact that the playoffs are coming around, there's only 1 more game, he wants to go into the playoffs high. And by doing something like this would really be a great confidence booster moving forward as this team tries to win a MAAC championship.
Completely agree.
And I agree with you guys. But Ryan, let me give it back to you. Does this team need to win a championship to have a successful season?
Yes, Katie, I really think they do. This is another team that we've seen so much talent. Not just Eamon Whalen, but defensively, they've been up towards the top of the conference in the MAAC for years now. This is a team that 2 of the last 3 seasons has been to the MAAC finals. Last year, they lose to a tough Ryder team who's kind of had their number in the playoffs. But I just think for this senior class, the one thing they haven't done is win a MAAC championship, and that's what they need to do this year. I mean, it's just plain and simple. You can't keep losing in the playoffs. You can't keep losing MAAC championship games and just have us sit here and compliment you. At some point, they have to get over the hump. And I think they have to this year for it to be a successful season.
Yeah, absolutely, and I couldn't agree with you more, Ryan. They have to get over the hump, and this is a team that you mentioned the past 2 out of the 3 years. They have been in the MAAC finals last year, in that MAAC final game, and they did lose. And I'm going to make a Yankee comparison, Ryan Flaherty's favorite team, the New York Yankees, where in 2017 they were 1 game from the World Series, and at that point they were kind of in that baby bomber honeymoon phase. So because they made it that close in 2017, every year after that, as long as they keep getting better, it's championship or bust. And I think the same comparison applies for the Quinnipiac Bobcats men's soccer team. It's championship or bust. They've been there before. They still have the team. They still have Eamon Whalen. I know last year they did lose Rashawn Dowley, so that's a big loss, but this team has been able to bounce back nicely this season. So I'll say it again, it's championship or bust for this team.
And you bring up a good point. The freshmen are filling those roles. We talked a lot about the people that were leaving this program, but the people that have come into this program have been stellar, and I think that's another reason why they just have too much talent for it to not be championship or bust.
No, absolutely.
Now we'll hand it over to one of soccer's finest, Will Fowler. He's going to share with you what he thinks is the dream team for the men's soccer game tomorrow against Ryder.
one regular season game remaining for Eric DeCosta and the Quinnipiac Bobcats. Of course, he got all the way to the championship game last year on the backs of Eamon Whalen, Rashawn Dally, Yeppe Haire, but Dally and Haire are no longer options this season. So what does the ideal postseason starting 11 look like for DeCosta's men? Well, we're starting goal, and this is maybe the easiest decision DeCosta is going to have for the entire team sheet. It's in goal. It's Jared Mazzola, the easy option. He's been just as good this year as he was last year, and he is undoubtedly the clear option to be in between the posts when the Bobcats take the field for the postseason. We're going to set this up in a defensive 4-3-3 and move to the center backs, where it's Connor McCoy and Henry Wygant. McCoy, the vocal leader of the back line, that voice from the back that every team needs, and Henry Wygant, who's maybe been the most impressive freshman to date. He leads the team in minutes, and he's been unbelievable paired with McCoy for the entire season. We'll go to the defensive midfield position now, and this one's almost a no-brainer as well. It's Dejan Duric. He's the glue between that back line and the midfield. He knows how to cut into passing lanes, very calm on the ball, knows where the right play is, never gets caught out of position. He is exactly the type of player you need for your offense, who likes to push their fullbacks up the field to have Duric be able to drop back and play with those center backs. It makes that entire formation work, and Duric will be the option there in that defensive midfielder position. All right, let's go to the forwards, and this one may be a little bit of a surprise, but playing on the left for me is Brog Austin. It's just so difficult to leave this guy out of the 11 after what he's done the second half of this entire season. He is a magician with the ball at his foot, the low center of gravity. He can weave in and out of defenders with ease. He is the perfect player to complement the other two forwards, who I'll get to later. The first one of those two forwards is going to be Tomasz Vakula, somebody who usually plays centrally but has played wide before. Listen, he's a freshman who's second on the team in goals behind only Eamon Whalen. Not a bad player to be looking up at in that category. He's a natural-born playmaker, and you can't leave him off in a situation like this. And playing in that striker role, I feel like I don't even need to justify this selection. It's Eamon Whalen, the number 7, 6 most goals all-time in Quinnipiac history. All I will say is if this guy is healthy and he's not in the starting 11 come playoff time, there is a problem. So there you have it, Quinnipiac looking to repeat what they did last season and then take it a step further. And I think that these will be the guys who have to do it if they're going to replicate that success. Katie, back to you.
Thanks, Will, and we will just have to wait and see on that starting lineup. And before our first commercial break, I have one last question about volleyball for you two. Will the team make the playoffs? Mind you, the team is in 6th right now, and the top 6 make the postseason. They have 5 games left. Max, you were back and forth on your answer before, so what did you finally decide on?
So I decided that they definitely, and I'm confident when I say it, will make the playoffs. They take on St. Peter's on Saturday. Bet the money line. They're going to win that one. And then they do play Ryder, a very good team. They're not going to win that one. But then they play Siena. Siena is in that 7th spot right now in the MAAC, 2 games behind them, sitting at 4-9 on the season. And they did lose to Siena earlier this season, but this time they're going to be home. And I've been fortunate with DQBSN to be on the call. So I have been at some of these games against Canisius, against Marist, where the home court advantage in Burcon for Quinnipiac is really a big advantage for this team. I mean, sometimes I can't even hear myself think in that court. So that's going to be a really big advantage. If they could take St. Peter's and they could take Siena, it doesn't matter what happens against Niagara and Canisius. They will make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I had no need to be wishy-washy like you. This is a pretty simple answer. Yes, they're going to make the playoffs. Right now, they're sitting in the 6th seed, 2 games clear of the playoffs with 5 to play. As you mentioned, they're playing 2 teams that are below them in the MAAC standings right now. St. Peter's, the worst team in the conference, and Siena, who's just below them. You got to think they're going to win those games at home, especially. And then, coming out of the St. Peter's win, you would think they'd have 3 straight wins going into Ryder. Ryder, a team that's just above them in the playoffs. And, I think for me, it's whatever the teams below them do, it doesn't really matter. They should be in the playoffs.
100%.
Ryan, you make an interesting point with Ryder. They're 2nd in MAAC right now, so we'll see how they fare. But time for our first commercial break, and when we come back, Max and Ryan will discuss which men's ice hockey goalie should stick, plus a live report from the Quinnipiac women's basketball home opener. Stay with us.
45 over 92.
180 over 111. I had a heart attack and a cardiac arrest and then a stroke.
Your blood pressure numbers could change your life.
If I would have followed a treatment plan, I would not be in this situation.
Lowering your high blood pressure could save you from a heart attack or stroke. If you've stopped your treatment plan, restart it or talk to your doctor about creating one that works better for you. Start taking the right steps at manageyourbp.org.
Now I'm, trying to get better, stronger than ever.
the black truck. Hey, Christina from accounting.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, I used to date a girl named Christina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she dumped me for my best friend. You want to see some photos of them that I took?
I don't.
I thought we talked about this, buddy.
Buzzed and overshared again?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna call a car.
That's a smart idea.
So, yeah, I know, that's why I did it.
Hey, you're gonna get back to the top of the mountain.
Does that mean I'm gonna get back with Christina?
No.
Oh.
No.
Quinnipiac. It's known for its men's ice hockey team. Their record right now is 4-3, so their season is just getting started, which, by the way, goes until February 29th. So in their 7 games so far, we've seen junior Keith Petruzzelli as the starting goalie. But Ryan, at what point do you start to question your starting goalie?
Listen, this has been a shaky start, and I get it, but we haven't started playing conference games yet. I need at least one weekend of Keith Petruzzelli in the net against Harvard and Dartmouth to feel it out a little. Harvard is one of the most talented teams in the ECAC. Dartmouth brings back almost their entire roster, a team that beat Quinnipiac last year. I need to see 2 games against 2 tough ECAC opponents. Conference play, as we know, is just different than non-conference play, so I don't necessarily think things are going to change, but I need to see 2 games in the ECAC first.
Yeah, no, Ryan, I absolutely agree with you. I think that Rand Pecknold should have it in the back of his mind saying we might have a goalie issue, but Keith Petruzzelli is really the only one with experience. Everyone else has not even played a full game, any of the other goalies on this roster. And let's not forget, Keith Petruzzelli was selected in the NHL draft 2 years ago in the 3rd round by the Detroit Red Wings, and he has shown a lot of promise last year against Boston College. They came in here to Hamden as the number 18 team in the nation, and he had a shutout in a 1-0 win. So there has been a lot of promise there, and NHL teams, specifically the Detroit Red Wings, have taken notice of that. So it would be a really hard move if Rand Pecknold decides to pull him, but maybe if it gets that bad in conference play, you have to see what you got. You're not going to know what you have in anyone else unless you pull them. You go back to the Yankees, and that next man up mentality, they didn't know what they had in Gio Rochelle, and now he's considered one of the best third basemen in the American League. So if it gets that bad, Rand Pecknold might have to make a move, but right now I think you stick with Petruzzelli just a little bit longer because he does have so much potential and really the only one on this team that has experience.
And he's shown you he can win. He was 10-4 last year in games that he started. This isn't some scrub. This is a good goalie, and we need to see him play a little more.
You guys said it, we know this team is good, and last year the Bobcats, they won their first battle in the NCAA tournament against Arizona State. Fast forward to this past weekend, and Quinnipiac lost twice to Arizona State. Very different standards, of course, between NCAA play and regular season game. But Max, how panicked are you with this sweep?
I'm cautious. I'm not worried because that's not a good look for the Quinnipiac Bobcats this weekend. This is a team that 2 years ago when they did go to Arizona State, they split, and then of course last year, as Katie, you just mentioned, they were able to defeat this team in the national tournament. So for them to have that type of weekend is a little bit concerning, but as you just mentioned before, they haven't even started ECAC hockey play, and that's what counts. So maybe this could be a little bit of a blessing in disguise for the Quinnipiac Bobcats, where they can kind of regroup and say, look, that's not the team that we are, and we've taken notice. We can fix those mistakes, get in the film room, and when ECAC hockey play starts, we're the team that we're supposed to be.
So I'm a little more concerned than Max. Concerned is a great word, I feel like, because admittedly Keith Petruzzelli has been shaky, and you don't want to throw Evan Fear into a tough ECAC conference. The penalty kill has been, special teams, I should say, power play is 4 of 36, only 11%. Penalty kill is around 80%, not what we've seen from Quinnipiac, I should say. So I'm concerned. The youth and inexperience isn't going to play well in ECAC play, and I just think with all those contributing factors, it's tough to figure out your team and figure out the chemistry in such a tough conference as the ECAC. So I'm definitely concerned. They haven't played a lot of great talent, and they're 4-3. So it's tough to sit here and say that you can't be concerned about how they've started.
I guess I won't be concerned. But now, live from the People's United Center, we have Eric Kerr, one of Q30's women basketball beat reporters, here with an update on the team's home opener today against Drexel. Eric, thanks for joining us.
So here in the People's United Center today, the women's basketball team
Didn't end up winning today here. Drexel came out on top. Final score 66-62. Why the Bobcats lose this one? Well, mainly the answer for that was turnovers. In this game, the Bobcats finished with 16 turnovers on the day, whereas Drexel had just 13. And back in the first half, there were 7 Bobcat turnovers, but 6 of those came in the second quarter alone. This allowed Drexel to get on that big run the second quarter to get that lead, 33-28, and from there, they were able to hold on and maintain the rest of the way through. What caused it? Well, Taylor Hurd, one of the seniors in the team, mentioned that it was lack of experience and a lack of grit from the team that the 5 seniors that originally started from the team had in the past. So they just need to figure that out and kind of put that into form for their next game. Also, Drexel came out with a lot of good defensive strategies. Sometimes they would switch to a 2-3 zone to prevent the driving lanes from the Bobcats. And also, they would play a lot of hedging screens on defense to prevent the Bobcats from driving around, looking to get angles to the basket for shots or to dish it off to a teammate. Another thing, the offensive glass was a major killer for the Bobcats. Trish Fowler commented on it in the press conference as well. She said that one of the things that the Bobcats wish they could have done better as a team is crashing the offensive glass, getting those rebounds, and not giving Drexel any extra opportunities to put it in the basket. One of the players that really gave them the extra opportunity was Bailey Greenberg. She had 12 rebounds, and a lot of those rebounds came from working in the offensive glass and putting those in for points. She had a double-double in this game, a big impact player for Drexel with 31 points in the day. And a lot of those points came from the charity stripe, 19 for 21 from the free throw line that day. And a lot of it was just her finding the glass, getting the offensive rebound, drawing the foul, and hitting her shots. You know, a lot of the times when she walked up to the free throw line, it was like automatic 2 points. She would just drain it 2 after 2, by after another. So those are the big things to take away from this game. This is what ultimately led Drexel to come out on top. Quinnipiac just coming out short on this one. However, they'll get a chance to redeem themselves next Wednesday when they'll take on Yale, one of the biggest rivalries in Quinnipiac athletic history. Ball for me. Back to you at the desk, Katie.
From one basketball guru to another, here's a preview of the MAAC men's basketball teams from Q30's Bryan Schwartz.
That time of the year, the day is getting shorter, your fantasy football team stinks, but there's that one thing that can still make us sports fans happy. College basketball is back, so let's dive right into my preseason MAAC predictions. This conference has seen a ton of change the past few years, but we all know that one constant, and I'll get to that in just a bit. Number 8, St. Peter's. This is a team that I do like. Shaheen Holloway is in his second season in the midst of reshaping that entire program. Peacocks lost Devontae Turner and Samuel Adowu, 2 mainstays the last few years. I have Canisius at number 7. The Golden Griffs are without Isaiah Reese, who's now on the G League Santa Cruz Warriors, and Takal Molson, who transferred to Seton Hall. Malik Johnson will be a player to watch this year up in Buffalo. Now at number 6, I've got Manhattan. It's time for Steve Masiello to get back to the MAAC's promised land this year. He's got a fairly young team. Paulie Polcap is a defensive wizard in the paint. Warren Williams, Tyler Reynolds, and Samir Stewart should be in for strong seasons. Monmouth is next at number 5. King Rice has a strong backcourt. Ray Salnav and Dion Hammond are real good, so it'll be interesting for the Hawks down in West Long Branch. Number 4, the Siena Saints. One and done for head coach Jamion Christian last year. Now it's Carmen Massarello's job to lead the way. He's got the preseason player of the year in Jalen Pickett, as well as a really good surrounding cast. Siena's a team to watch come postseason time. Bobcats fans, I have Quinnipiac at number 3. Replacing the production of Cam Young will be one of the major storylines this season in Hamden. Rich Kelly and Jacob Rugoni are in for big junior years. Depth is a strength for the Bobcats. It's year 3 of Baker Dunleavy, and it'll be very interesting and exciting to watch. Next is Ryder at number 2. This is a team that should have been more successful the past few seasons. The Bronx have Stevie Jordan, one of the best players in the MAAC. Kevin Baggett needs a strong year out of this Ryder squad. Number 1, how could it be any team other than Iona? Tim Kluse and the Gales are gunning for their 5th straight MAAC title. The last time Iona missed the conference championship game back in 2012, and that isn't changing this year. Those are my MAAC predictions for the upcoming season. The road to Atlantic City starts now.
From the court to the ice, the Quinnipiac women's ice hockey team is not off to such a hot start. Right now, they are 0-3 in the conference, which puts them last in the ECAC standings. Out of those 3 losses, though, the team's smallest loss, technically, was to number 3 Cornell. Bobcats lost 1-0 in that one. Ryan, what does that loss say about this team?
Katie, I think it just tells me that they're close. They're close to competing, but there's a finishing problem. There's an execution thing there that This team isn't a top 10 team, and they still can't compete with those top 10 teams, but the compete level is there, the talent is there, and it's just a matter of time before they get over that hump.
Yeah, I agree that the talent is there, and I'm not too worried about it because last year they lost to Ohio State 3-2 in both games, fresh off of a Frozen Four appearance. They also lost to number 6 Cornell last year, only 2-1. Number 10 Princeton 3-2. Clarkson, the 5th team in the nation, 3-2. And so same thing this year. I'm not too worried. They were still able to make a playoff berth last year.
All right, so we covered it all. The soccers, the volleyball, the hockeys, field hockey, and rugby are over. That's most of the fall and winter sports around here, so what's left to talk about? Trust me, there's more right after this.
You ready to play band with us? I'm gonna play my clarinet.
And Elmo's gonna play his drum. Drum loud.
Oh, well, you know what to do, Julia.
Julia knows.
Mm-hmm. With Julia's autism, loud sounds can be too much.
But she still loves to make music. Play band.
Early screening for autism can make a lifetime of difference. Find out more at screenforautism.org.
Yeah.
Tonight, because we have no more questions, but you're back just in time for...
Yeah, Sam.
Tonight, the women's basketball team tipped off. The men will follow a week from tomorrow against Brown. However, some of the biggest names in Quinnipiac basketball have left the People's United Center for good. The women's entire starting five from last year's MAAC champ squad graduated, and the men's team lost the Robinson twins, Adewale Bundu, and the 2018-19 MAAC Player of the Year, Cam Young. But don't let that fool you into thinking these teams can't compete. Trisha Fabry breeds a winning culture, and the team is still led by last year's MAAC 6th Player of the Year, Taylor Hurd. And Baker Dunleavy, entering his 3rd season as head coach, is ready to lead this team to its potential behind juniors Rich Kelly and Jacob Bergoni. Quinnipiac is typically known as a hockey school, but don't be surprised if the basketball programs have your full attention in March.
To say there have been some impressive senior classes throughout my time here at Quinnipiac would be an understatement. Now, you probably think I'm going to talk about Quinnipiac's women's basketball team while losing their entire starting five, or maybe the 4 members of the Quinnipiac men's ice hockey team that are currently thriving in the AHL. Well, I'm not. Tonight, I wanted to highlight a senior class that's been just as dominant, but with little to no recognition. The 7 seniors on the Quinnipiac men's soccer team have been quietly tearing up the pitch for the last 4 seasons. Winning 70% of their conference games, they've posted a 28-7-2 record in the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, and have a chance to better that record on Wednesday. They have received a postseason berth for the MAAC playoffs in all 4 seasons, including a regular season title and 2 trips to the MAAC championship game. This group includes Yeppe Hare, a 2-time member of the All-MAAC First Team, and Connor McCoy, a member of the All-MAAC First Team and Second Team, who have been a staple of Quinnipiac's defense, which consistently resides at the top of the conference. Chris Yakovidis, a keeper who owns the single-season record for wins and sits 3rd all-time in wins in program history, and of course, Eamon Whalen, the unanimous 2018 MAAC Offensive Player of the Year, who has racked up more accolades than I can mention. So while it's nice to reminisce on the past, for the next few weeks, let's just enjoy the one senior class that's putting on a show.
That'll do it for this week's show, and there are only a couple more left, so be sure to tune in next week, Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern for more debates. Check out more of our content at Q30TV.com, or better yet, follow us on Twitter for all your Quinnipiac sport updates at Q30 Sports. For the producing staff, our crew behind the scenes, Max and Ryan, I'm Katie O'Keefe.